Hi, Year 12. Due to the roaring success of my previous screen record videos, 64 of you have already made UCAS accounts and at least put your name and address in, which is fantastic. Thank you so much to those people, because it just means that next year, as we don't know what's going to be happening, whether we're going to have a second spike, etc., you're just making your life so much easier, because as soon as those applications are in, we can start checking those through and making sure everything's correct on them. I'm slightly distracted by it, just how ridiculously long the fringe is becoming. It's almost dangerous. So I do apologise for that lockdown dressing problem. So in this session, I'm going to talk about how choosing your university options. And I know for some of you, you've got some really strong ideas about what you like to do, but for other people, you might not have a clue. So it's just a little starting point of thinking about that, because obviously that's one of the things that a lot of people aren't putting choices in. Don't worry too much at the moment about your predicted grades. Predicted grades are often different to target grades, because target grades, remember, are generated by a set of data over a long period of time, looking at people with your GCSE grades, what they get in your subjects at A level on average, okay? Obviously, your predicted grades are going to be based on your potential that you've shown throughout your A levels. So I would say when you're looking at courses and maybe shortlisting those sorts of things, just to go for a range of courses. And universities always say you should have at least one aspirational one, you know, a couple of realistic ones, one that's quite low, and then your fifth one could be anything. Okay, so you know, you might want to go for two aspirational ones. So you don't worry too much about kind of that at the moment. You maybe want to come up with a long list at the moment of maybe 10 courses at different universities, or maybe some at the same university but slightly different courses. So there's lots of different options at the moment. Don't get too hung up on that. We'll come back to that in September. So as I said, you've got 5 choices to make. You can actually apply with just one choice, but that would be a bit crazy, and I think it costs you like £2 more to put in all the choices. You don't have to choose 5, but most people do. And as I also said, it doesn't necessarily always have to be the same course, but I'll come back to that later on. So I'm going to do some share a screen of a PowerPoint with you and talk over it, and you get to see my little head in the corner. So here we go. So obviously you need to start thinking about your future now if you've not done so already. And is that going to work? Nope. Let me just stop the share. Share screen. Let me see if I can do it in this mode. I can. It's not as beautiful, but we'll do it this way. All right, so first thing is thinking about, what do you think you'd like to study? Quite a lot of you know, I want to go off and do English, I want to go off and do accounting or whatever, but some of you might not have a clue. I just want to go to university, it's kind of expected that I'm going to go. You know, you've got perception that, you know, which is true, that graduates earn more money than people without a degree. So you're thinking, I'm going to go to university. So the thing to think about here is, what A levels are you taking, or what BTECs or Cambridge Technicals are you taking, and where might they lead you to? What things are you good at that you would want to spend another 3 years doing? Because, you know, as we've already started to see this year, with our first UCAS day, it's going to cost you a lot of money to go to university. So you better hope that you're doing something that you want to do, because otherwise that's a lot of money to be miserable. So something to think about is, what are you good at? What do you think you'd enjoy? And what would your current subjects lend themselves to at degree level? So looking at what you've chosen, which presumably you've chosen because you're good at them and enjoy them, what else could you do? So a really good website to look at this is this website, Informed Choices. Let's see if it'll let me go on. My neighbour talking background. And I've recommended this to you before, but I'll recommend it again. It is run by Russell Group, but it's not just exclusive to Russell Group universities. And what's really good with this is there's 2 options. There's that I don't know what degree I'd like to study, and then there's I do know. So if I go to I don't know, first of all, basically I can have a look at the different subject areas and read about the different types of degree. And one thing that I can do is I can choose my subjects, and I can put in what I'm already doing now. So let's just say I'm doing drama and theatre studies, digital technology and Chinese. And then it will give me a list of potential degrees that I could take based on the subject I've picked. So you see there, look, obviously some are going to be linked to the A levels I'm doing. I'm doing Chinese, and therefore I could do Chinese languages, but you know, other things have probably got nothing to do with what seemingly initially those subjects I've put in, for example, social policy, law, okay? And I think they're colour coded into maybe skills or different areas. Yeah, it's areas because we've got there, all the languages are in pink. And then these degrees have no essential subjects and may be open to you. So you can see it's a really good starting point just by putting in your qualifications. So that's informed choices if you haven't got a clue. And then if we go back, I know what degree I want to study. And on there you've got a section that talks about, click on the degree. Click on a degree below to find out what subjects you need to study at school. So this is like reverse. So say I decided, oh, I want to do architecture. Can I do that with the A levels that I've chosen? So it's a mixture of maths, etc. Usually no essential subjects, but an art science mix is preferred and a portfolio is essential. So that's another different way around of doing it, just to give you some ideas. But of course, then you need to check on the university because some of them will have quite specific asks of what they're after. So let's just go back to the PowerPoints. So that's informedchoices.ac.uk, and it's collaboration with Russell Group Universities, but it's a really good starting point for exploring those things. One thing that I think a lot of people don't realise is that you don't actually, your degree is not a vocational thing unless you are doing something like medicine or veterinary studies or dentistry or something like that, because you could have a degree in one thing and do something completely different. You know, so if you take someone like Mr. Molyneux, some of you may remember of old, he actually had a degree in economics, but was a PE teacher. You know, so it's not, you're not stuck in one particular area, because degrees are giving you broad, they're saying that you're educated to a certain level, that you've got a certain set of skills in terms of research, writing, exam sitting. But, you know, it's not just about content, subject content, it's about skills as well. So I've just done a little slide here, which is about these people. So you've got there Naga Munshetty, the lady in the middle. She's a presenter on BBC Breakfast. She actually has an English degree from Leeds University. So yeah, English, that sort of links with journalism, which is where she's gone. So that's obviously why she chose it. But she could equally have done an English degree and done something completely different. Russell Howard, who's a comedian. He does Russell Howard's Good News. He's got an economics degree. The Rock down there, Dwayne Johnson, he has got a criminology and psychology degree. And there we've got Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, he's got an electrical engineering degree. So, you know, the degree, yes, if you then want to go off and be an electrical engineer, ideally you do need to do an electrical engineering degree, otherwise you're going to have to do some form of conversion course, but it doesn't then limit you to only ever doing that one thing. So you need to really spend a bit of time looking now at those areas. Don't just think, oh, well, I'm just going to go and do a law degree because I want to do law. Well, you don't actually have to have a law degree to do law. I could go and do a conversion course at postgraduate level now and become a solicitor and move on to be a barrister, etc. So read around that. You know, my brother is an accountant, he's a chartered accountant, and he doesn't have a degree. Okay, so he just had to do it a really, really long way around. So don't just assume. You need to do a little bit of research around this. And a really, really good source of information is to ask your teachers, because your teachers probably know quite a lot about the subject area and careers and things like that. And I'm sure they'll be happy for you to drop them a line. Another thing you need to think about when you start to think about the degree is that not all degrees are the same. So you already know this, but there are Bachelor of Arts degrees and Bachelor of Science degrees, and that might be particularly relevant in terms of the course content and what you can do with it after. So if I take the degree that I have, it's in Cultural and Media Studies, clearly that's a Bachelor of Arts degree, but there are some film courses that are Bachelor of Science degrees, because it's all about the technology of the film, it's all about film grading, developing the chemistry of that. So actually all the stuff you're doing is very science-based rather than being arts and based in creative. So that's really important, because if I'd have picked that course, I'd have been rubbish at it. So that would have not have been the right thing for me to do. A particular one that you need to look out for that particularly is psychology, because in psychology, arts-based ones are obviously probably more about social psychology. And if you haven't got Bachelor of Science, it means that some places you cannot then go on and train to be like a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist and that sort of thing. So again, one good place to look there would be something like the British Psychological Society. Most areas have a big professional body. So, you know, like the BMC, the British Medical Council for medicine and for doctors. You know, there'll be an accountancy one. So have a look, what is the professional body for physics, professional body for economics or whatever, and they will often have a section for students on that anyway. You need to think it's got an honours with it. Most degrees nowadays do have an honours. It would be more if you were doing it at a like Montrose College in Ilford, who do degrees that are linked to a university, but they're not all honours degrees, which means that there's certain things you can't do. Like I don't think you can teach if you don't have an honours degree. So most do have that, but just check. Do you want a year abroad? You know, you usually have to pay your tuition fee still for a year abroad, so you've got to think about that and the cost of that. You wouldn't be able to work necessarily, but maybe that's something that really appeals to you. Do you have to find your own year abroad? Does the university do it? Do they have a link with another university? So things like that. Is there a year in industry? That might be really important if you're doing something like the boy I used to be a nanny for before I went to university. He is doing a building studies degree, and so his year in industry has been a placement with a big building company in London, where he basically has been paid more than I earn now, and he's doing that as a student. It's a big company called Multiplex. They built Wembley and stuff. So that year in industry has actually been a paid year with experience. He's like had a lovely time living in London, etc. And you know, so that's something to have a look at. And where are these places? Are there placements? Do you need to find your own placement? If you're doing something like early childhood studies, you would need to have placements in schools and nursery settings and places where young people are. So, you know, what links have the university got? Where do you do them? Or do you have to find your own? Because that's quite hard. Is it a professional qualification? Do you get something out of it that is professionally recognised, or is there more work you have to do after? Most degrees are a starting point. There's more work after that's specific to the organisation. And I've just realised, look, I'm not going to spell that right. That's assessment. But how is it assessed? So it's really important you start looking at that now, maybe not in the big sort of long list of courses, but when you start narrowing it down, because degrees are very, very different. Some degrees you do like an A-level where you do the whole year and then you get the exam at the end. Some degrees you do a whole year with a mixture of essays and exams. Some degrees you're doing semesters, so you have 2 semesters a year, so you do 8 modules or topics in the first semester, which maybe takes you to the end of January, and then you do 8 more in the next bit. I'm making the numbers up, but you see what I'm saying. So you do basically lots of smaller things rather than maybe 5 long ones for the year. Is there any coursework in it? That's important. Is that coursework like creative, for example, if you're doing something like English creative writing, is there any writing involved that you're going to be assessed on? And then what is the final year assessment? So in my final year, I went into university for 2 hours a week, and then for actual proper lectures and tutorials. And then I also had like meetings to do my dissertation, but I wrote a 16,000 word dissertation. Not everybody would necessarily want to do that because I wasn't at university, so I was spending my time going and speaking and researching. So, you know, that might not be for everyone. Some people would rather just do a load of exams at the end of the year and that's all there is to it. So that's something to start thinking about as well. But maybe the last one is more when you're on to trying to narrow down your choices of where you want to go, specifically actually when you've had some offers as well. So this is the application cycle. It's really important that you're aware of these deadlines and the fact that there's an official UCAS deadline and then there is our actual deadline. It's even more important this year in terms of the fact that, you know, it's not going to be a normal year probably. There might be some more in and out of school, etc. We just don't know yet. So we've got to make sure that we're really organised. And that's why it was really genuinely really pleasing for me to go on and see so many people had started applying. It brought a tear to this old lady's eye, let me tell you. So if you are planning on applying to Oxbridge, which is Oxford or Cambridge, you cannot apply to both, for a medicine course, dentistry, being a vet, I can't say that one, veterinarian, you basically have to have your application ready on the first day that we see you in September. Okay, it needs to be in, and then your personal statement being checked by your form tutor. Form tutors know that you are doing this, and so they are ready to have personal statements sent to them to be checked. You can do that via me if you don't know how to contact them. If they're not your teacher and you can't contact them, show my homework, I can send those to them. But obviously they will look at those in their own time because that's, you know, they will be doing other things as well. So personal statement, which I'm going to do a couple of different sessions on next week, so I'll talk about more then. But basically you get that in because the deadline for it to hit UCAS is October the 15th. So when we get it, what happens is Miss Begum, who is the new secretary, will be in charge of UCAS. You will submit, you'll have it all signed by your form tutor to say that they've checked it and they think it's right and that they agree with your personal statement. And then you will then come to the office and pay, and Miss will then check through it all and make sure that yes, it's this qualification, it's not that one, etc. So do all that bits that can go wrong, and then once that is ready, it's approved and it comes to me. In the meantime, your subject teachers will be writing your references, and your form tutors will be writing what we call tops and tails, and that's the top and bottom of the reference, which fills out more information about you. That then gets put together and tidied up by your form tutor and made to all tied together. And then I basically have the final approval on that. So I look at it and I might say, oh, we haven't mentioned this. I think there's a bit of repetition there. You know, let's emphasize this because it's a sort of course. So I basically tidy all that up. So you can see how from you putting it in, quite a lot happens after that. It's not you put it in and we press a button and it's sent. It's, you know, there's quite a long process. So no matter at what point you do submit it, you cannot assume that it's going to go the next day. And the people who are worst at this are the people who submit it the latest, because they're like, well, why has it not gone? It's like, well, it was the same as it has been for everybody else over the last 4 months. So the deadline, the other deadline for UCAS is mid-January, and that again is the deadline for UCAS. However, our school deadline is the last day in November to guarantee that we send it in time, because at that point you're handing it in and it stretches sometimes to more than 3 weeks because I've got 50 people ahead of you that I need to go through. So you see that basically what I'm saying here is the faster you get it in and correct, the better your references, the better everything is checked and it goes off. Because not the better, because obviously they're all good, but we need to take time, and so it will take longer to go. The first people I get, theirs might go within a week, but that will get longer and longer as time goes on because they start to back up, and sometimes we need to come back to you to check things and all that sort of thing. Some people this year did submit them on the 15th of January and they did not go. They submitted them at 3 o'clock on the 15th of January. They didn't go, they went late. So doesn't mean that you wouldn't get any offers, but it just means that you maybe, if you're wanting to apply to a particular place, that might not be available. The other thing to bear in mind is the way universities work, they're paying a team of people to sit there and read these things and make offers all day. Those people are being paid from mid-October. So the sooner you get it in, the more likely you are to get an offer. So, you know, you may as well get it in, get it over with, and then you can just concentrate on actually getting the grades that you need, you know, and going and doing your open day visits and all that sort of thing, or doing them online if that's not available at the moment. You know, all of that stuff is better. Just get it out of the way and do it, okay? If things happen, you change your mind about the course and stuff, we can do about that. I'll not go into that now, but there's still things we can do. So you might get offers straight away, you might get an interview. Obviously, there might be other tests like UCAT, used to be UKCAT, LNET, VMAT, all those sorts of things. And Miss Phillips is in charge of, she administers all that because she's the exams officer. So worth getting in touch with Miss Phillips about that. But you don't need to register, I think, until at least end of September. It may even be mid-October, so don't worry too much. You then wait, you might have interviews, etc. You'll get your offers. You might get unconditional offers, which means, hey, you don't have to get anything to come. You just need to have sat 3 A levels or whatever your qualification is. And this year we had 32 of those. Now, I think this for you, you're going to be in a really competitive year next year because some students across the country won't go to university this year. So they can, universities can pick and choose those students and say, oh, well, they've already got 3 A's, we'll have them. So that's going to be an issue. This year, very few EU students and international students will come because of restrictions. They may well want to come back the year after, so that might limit you. So you need to make sure that you've got a really cracking application and a really cracking personal statement to counterbalance that. A couple of people have asked me about things like conservatoires. Can they apply for UCAS and a conservatoire? You can, that's not a problem. And some people have asked me about, can you do that with apprenticeships? Yes, you can. I would advise you to always apply for a university place anyway, and then apply for your apprenticeships as well. And I will put more out on that later on. The reason I'm not doing it now is because apprenticeships are a faster turnaround. It's not quite, and they happen all year. It's not just a cycle like it is with UCAS. And can you apply for universities abroad? You can. A couple of people have asked me about applying to Germany and America. I know a little bit about applying to America. and finding out about Germany. So if you are somebody who thinks you are going to want to apply abroad, then you might want to let me know that, so that we can help you where we can with that. It's not necessarily our 100% area of expertise. The interesting thing about applying to Germany, and this may apply for some of our students who would not receive funding because they've not got 3 years of living here, so they wouldn't get certain funding from the UK. If you are a German citizen, you basically can study at a German university for free. So that may be the case for many other countries. The other option is a lot of people go abroad because it's cheaper. So a couple of students like this year went to Hungary to do their medicine degree. It was easy to get on because there's not an NHS. They don't have a limited number of places like they do in the UK. And also it was much, much cheaper, even including flights home and accommodation and things like that. And you get a degree that then you do a short conversion to be a doctor in the UK, and the course is in English. So there's lots to investigate. There's loads of forums and that sort of stuff. Do some Googling and find out some things about that. Okay. So choosing a subject on UCAS, there's a whole section that's similar to the informed choices, and the same with courses there. Obviously you can put in the name of the course or the area, like if you only want to stay in England and things like that. And then what I would suggest is that you make some sort of spreadsheet for yourself where you've got a long list. So here I've got Aberystwyth University, the film and television course, and I've got the actual code for that. What is it called? How long is it? Is it full-time? What are the grades required? And I've got a link there via UCAS. I could have a link to the university website, I guess. So that's how I'd start my long list. Now, the next slide is from a student who is in the cohort this year. She sent me this a while ago. So she wants to do an English degree, and she's been researching the university that she'd like to go to. So here, she's looked at the ranking, and there's two key rankings that you could use here. So the Times newspaper do a ranking, as do the Guardian, and they rank the course in terms of things like dropout rates, student survey, employability after teaching, things like that. So you need to look at what they're ranking it on, and you also need to consider, is that the ranking of the university, is the university one overall? Loughborough, for example, is not. Or is it the ranking of that course? Because, for example, the university I went to was a very creative university. There were lots of courses where they were really good at, like drama, media, things like that. It was also a really good university for business. But I lived with somebody who did psychology, and it was a pretty dreadful course at that time. So, you know, you need to have a look at that. But also, I always say take it with a pinch of salt, because they do go up and down. And, you know, you need to think about how they've researched that. And obviously the ones usually it costs more are higher up in the ranking. So, you know, there are other factors. If you want to stay in London, there might only be so many places in London that do it. You know, if you wanted somewhere that's slightly cheaper tuition fees, that might be another issue. If you want somewhere that's very close by, you know, they have more of an open access community policy. So like Coventry University, Dagenham and University of East London, they call themselves community universities. So their whole aim is to get people to go to university who might not traditionally do so. So it doesn't mean that they're rubbish. For example, University of East London is like absolutely world beating in terms of sport. It's amazing. That and Loughborough are like top universities for that, but it might be that their requirements are slightly different, and they might be more flexible. So you know, you might go, my friend is doing her degree like 2.5 days a week. Someone else knows doing a degree only on a Saturday and Sunday. So that might be a really massively amazing option for people who've got to work, maybe they've got caring responsibilities, etc., etc. Anyway, I digress. So this one here, there's the rank of the course, the university, what the course is called. So this one is English with Business Studies. Is there a year abroad? Is there a placement year? And here are all the modules that are on offer, which is a really, really important thing to do. And I think this is really good for a short list. And this person has gone through and they, I think, have put red for either things they wouldn't be interested in, I think, because it's all digital stuff, yeah. It's all or maybe stuff that they don't know anything about. I'm not sure how they decided to do it, but it's a really good system, because if it's stuff you're not interested in, if you're looking, you've got loads and loads of red, you're going to discount it. They've also gone through and basically worked out the rough cost of halls, which for Loughborough is between £5,500 and £7,600 a year. So, you know, I think that's a really good way of whittling down your ideas of where you might want to go to. So what I'm really getting you to think about today is having a look at what different degrees there are that might be suitable for you, because it's not like with A-levels where there's like maybe 26 or 30 A-levels. I think there's something like 120,000 different types of named degree. Now that might be like English with creative writing, English with drama, medieval English, whatever. Yeah, it might all be stemming from the same thing, but there are tons and tons of options. Yeah, so you know that you can do football studies, you can do packaging design, you can do marine biology, you can do what's one that's we've been talking about for a while now, one that's like about it's like a geography degree, but it's all about like danger planning and environmental sort of climate change and things like that. So you know, there's so many things out there. Don't limit yourself straight away. But for a lot of you, I do appreciate that many of you intend to stay in London, and so that will limit you a little bit in terms of what you can look for. Some places then to look for information. UCAS obviously is going to be a #1 place, but also the UCAS Twitter feed. If any of you are Twitter fans, I think they might be on Insta too, just people with like degree hats on and stuff, mortarboards. The UCAS Twitter feed is really good because they have a student one and advisor one, and they have lots of things about webinars that are going on and things like that. Obviously, I'm putting up loads of things and showing my homework from universities. They're going to do a little bit of a sales pitch to you about what they've got to offer. Oh, someone banging, this is all you hear where I live, just one big building site. So you've got lots of universities that are offering webinars on personal statement writing, choosing a course. Yes, they're going to sell a little bit. Oh yeah, come to Greenwich, it's like this. But, you know, that's fine. You know, listen to that bit and then listen to everything and forget that bit and listen to everything else. Access Professions is a great website. And the Guardian University Guide, as I said. Push also is an interesting guide. The National Careers Service, Which University Guide, obviously websites themselves. And then Student Room. Now, Student Room, you've got to be a little bit cynical about, because Student Room, generally when people go on the internet, say something going on to moan about something, but they do also host webinars and conferences and things like that on there that are useful and put information out. And a lot of people use Student Room to meet groups and the Facebook pages of the university to meet groups of people who are going to be living in the halls where they live or doing the course that they do, so that then when they actually go to university, they know some people, not in the real world, but in the virtual world, which is pretty cool. So that's something to have a think about. And if people find any other really useful sites, please just send them to me and I'll share them with everybody else. So I hope that's been useful. Next time I'm going to have a look in more depth at personal statements and go through some examples, but I mainly will give you, I'll do it like this, but I'll also just give you a pack to look at, because you know, me just talking on the screen looking at things is probably not that interesting. And also, if people are interested, I will do a UCAS Microsoft Teams question and answer session. So if people want to, you know, come and ask anything really about university and university application, I can run a kind of open session where I'm just sat here like this waiting for people to talk to me. Anyway, I hope that's been useful and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Please do get in touch with me via Share My Homework if you are stuck on anything, if you need to ask any questions. Loads of you do anyway, and lots of you really nicely just message me and ask what I've been doing and see if I'm all right, which is really nice. Anyway, hope that you're all well, and just so you know that we all do really miss you, and we can't wait to really get back to some sort of normal. Okay, see you later, bye.